1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Allegiant Podcast. Join Jess Strickland, lead pastor of Living Hope in Beaverton, Oregon, and some of his favorite people, pastors, thinkers, theologians, business people, and hometown heroes, as they together consider how followers of Jesus can remain faithful and bring transformation to every corner of society. Enjoy today's episode.
Prophecy can be formational. It can. So when we speak of formational, we're speaking of Jesus being formed in a person's heart.
Yes.
For the sake of others.
For the sake of others, yeah.
Yeah.
And primarily, I believe what he wants to form in our hearts, I shouldn't say primarily, but at the basement, at the core. So let me do it this way. I think the core virtue of God is Hesed. Mm-hmm. It is his fidelity. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to change.
Yes.
From that virtue comes his character, all the beautiful things that we see about him, because whatever's coming out of him is coming from this core nature that does not change. So I think when he's forming himself in us, he's also wanting to put that very core in us also. So what about prophecy, if that definition would be okay? Yeah. What in prophecy would be formational in people? How does God use it in a formational way in a person's life? You're prophesying over me. I'm receiving it. Mm-hmm. How can it be before it does anything else, before it creates ambition and desire and all the crazy things it can create? Mm-hmm. How can it be used to first, Lord, let these things be spoken. Let them create your kind of Hesed, your kind of faithfulness in me.
Yeah, I think that if a prophetic word that's on, that's speaking right, a good word is going to speak, first of all, to a word of confirmation into someone's heart, where they hear the word, they receive the word, there's a yes inside of them. They might not have even heard it articulated in their life the way it was spoken at that moment, but it awakened something inside of them, where Paul comes to Timothy and he says, I want you to stir up the gift of God that's inside of you, that was given to you through the laying on of my hands. And so there's something about prophetic ministry that begins to activate and awaken something inside of someone. And when you receive a word like that and you say, stir that thing up, then it moves. You talk about formation. It moves to a place where I'm actually lining up with the purpose of God for my life. There's a clarity that comes so I can move and be formed, into and transformed into what God is doing in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is, in my mind, an excellent answer, because if prophecy, the key benefit it probably has been for me, is it awakens a thought in me. This is how I say it. It awakens a thought in me mm-hmm. that I've never had before. But once it awakens that thought, it was like home. Mm-hmm. I went to Germany one time. So I live, in an area in which Dutch farmers settled our area. Mm-hmm. I go to Germany one time, and I looked at Germany and I said, home. In other words, by the farms that you saw there, you saw how we had kind of done that farming in our very own area, how they had brought it there. That's what sometimes prophecy is to me. I've never thought that thought before.
Yes.
But I'm home. Yeah. Like what you awakened in me has been in my heart all along. That would be kind of the confirmation of it. And it is very formational. Mm-hmm. So it brings you back home, but you never consciously realized that was home.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is the power of the prophetic word.
Yeah.
In what context mm-hmm. is it easiest, do you think, for the prophet to prophesy?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I grew up with my grandmother, Dr. Violet Kiteley, and my father, Dr. David Kiteley. They're the doctors. And we could be on an airplane or a restaurant. I'm talking about anywhere, and they can function in any context. When you use the word context, they can function in any environment and start prophesying over people. The worship didn't have to be set just so, right. And There was prayer and fasting for 3 days. I believe because they stayed in it. And so I think that context is determined by communion and by this, this staying in a place where you're always ready, instant, in season and out of season, where you're in connection with heaven. So your eyes are open to be able to see and begin to move. So context, for some people though, context, is church. That's the first context where we begin to move, and that's a good place to start.
Okay, so how do you stay ready? What would be your spiritual practices that keep you ready?
Oh boy. That's a good question. How do I stay ready? For me, I'm trying to figure out how to invite you into my world. That's why I'm moving slowly on this answer. Yeah. My world is constantly flowing with worship. I'm a worship connoisseur.
Yeah.
I have been since I was young. I'm always searching the land, the world for a sound, a flow. Bring me a minstrel. And then also, I'm a scripture guy. I'm a word guy. So between the scriptures and worship for me, and I'm the type where I can sit on a song for a month, 3 weeks. I can sit on a verse or a chapter or a story for weeks and I don't need to move. I just stay right there. And so for me, that's where I move from in ministry. I move from that place of communion. And I'm not really trying to conquer the world while I'm trying to do it, what I'm doing in my own personal, if I'm preparing for a sermon to preach at a conference, that's one thing, but that'll become my hovering point for a moment as well too.